Mr. Chairman, I prefer my legal testimonies to be about macroeconomics with a side of shrill, unhinged screaming. So, did Generalissima Blondie just become my new favorite deplorable? We'll let you be the judge of that, playlisters.
Welcome to Political Playlist.
All right, are we ready, guys?
Happy hour.
Happy hour.
We fucked that up so bad.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Michael Kristoff.
I'm Anna Muskie-Goldwyn.
And I'm Anthony Barkett.
And boy, gang, the sparks were flying on Congress Hill today.
Oh,
Capitol Hill. It's not Congress Hill, right? It's
Hill.
Capitol.
You're drunk.
It's Congress Hill. Yeah. Congress Hill. Today we have a good episode. It doesn't slow down here. We live in the news world now. It's constant. I feel like I'm in a batting cage where just news stories are being
like
hurled
flying at
me
you from all directions.
faster than I can swing.
That sounds
Yeah.
terrifying. Honestly, batting
Yeah.
cage is like that is like actually my worst nightmare. Did you guys know that one of my biggest fears is things being thrown at me?
Oh wow!
And
Good to know.
And look out!
Yeah, shit, I shouldn't have said anything.
Catch.
Oh.
Thank
You
God
know,
this is
it's-
remote.
Yeah. Well, we are going to be talking about Kevin Kiley, who is a politician on our playlist. We are going to discuss how to talk about the SAVE Act, and we're going to celebrate a little bit of a win. Spoiler, it's Olympic related.
Dun,
But
dun, dun, dun,
first,
dun, dun.
The files that just keep filing.
The files.
We are going to keep on this Epstein train because as much as Republicans want this to go away, it does not seem to be going away. And today, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who is just a real standout in this cabinet, she had, I think it's fair to say, one of the most unbelievably unhinged, ludicrous congressional testimony hearings I've ever seen. What did we watch today, guys?
Well, speaking of too much news, I'm going to just throw a bet out there for us.
Oh,
Or I
Ooh.
guess a bet for me. So if we
Okay.
hit 20,000 followers on Instagram, I'm going to dress up as the grass from Bad Bunny's halftime
Okay.
performance.
Wait, hell yeah.
Did you know
if
that
we-
each of those costumes was 40 pounds?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Um,
The casting call said you had to be between 5'10" and 6'1", athletic, and able to wear a costume that weighed 40 pounds.
Wow.
Okay, well, I definitely qualify. And then number 2 is if we hit 30,000 followers, I'm going to be Pam Bondi from this hearing.
Oh,
So
man.
Oh,
what-
We
God.
got to
so-
get that.
Yeah, we got to
Yeah.
get
So
this.
you'll be Pam Bondi, and then Michael and I will be grass flanking you on either side.
That's perfect. So, I mean, what happened today? So, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, had her testimony today in front of the House Judiciary Committee. What happened there? She called Rep. Jamie Raskin a washed-up loser lawyer. She refused to acknowledge the Epstein survivors that were sitting right behind her. She asked the committee if they would apologize to President Trump for his impeachment hearings. She agreed with Jim Jordan that you have the right to protest in the street, but that doesn't give you the right to go into the Capitol and disrupt Congress.
Ironic.
Ding, ding. Maybe January
Wow.
6th.
Interesting.
She had a kill book there that was basically like all negative stuff on each politician, mostly the Democrats, where she talked about some who had excessive stock trading all the way to illegal immigrants in their district that committed crimes. So overall, the hearing was contentious and partisan.
You forgot about how she was lecturing people on the S&P 500.
Oh, I'm
You're talking about the
don't
stock
worry, I'm
market.
going to get to that. That's
Okay,
just
great.
That's the icing on the cake right
This
now.
is
So-
the amuse-bouche, if you will.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we do a little bit of a deep dive right now? So Pam Bondi was testifying. Primary issue was really the lawmakers were questioning Bondi's, handling over the documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. Specifically, that a massive amount of the documents have not been released. There's still millions of pages that have not been released. Sloppy, incorrect redactions that expose many of the survivors' identity information, and also redacting many of these powerful and well-connected associates, and them questioning why. So some of the most important exchanges today, the first one I would say was the victims and survivors who were in their room, and I would say the apology showdown. So I'm going to butcher her name, but Rep. Pramila
Jayapal.
Jayapal, she pressed Bondi to turn to the survivors present and apologize directly to them for the handling of the release. Bondi declined to apologize directly, calling it a political and theatrical demand. And there's now like an amazing photo of Bondi looking away while they all raised their hands and showed who they were in the audience. Number two was between Rep. Massey and Bondi. Remember, Massey is the representative from Kentucky. He's a Republican. And he was asking about the redactions and saying, who's being protected here? And he pushed why the DOJ is shielding very influential Epstein associates via these redactions. You know, we've seen some of these that have said, send me the torture video, but that person's name is redacted. Bondi, of course, claimed that Thomas Massey is suffering from Trump derangement syndrome and that he's a terrible politician. Number three was the cover-up of accusations and personal clashes, one being with Democratic Representative Jamie Raskin. You know, he was explaining this being a whole cover-up. Raskin then was called a washed-up loser lawyer. And then lastly, just Bondi's whole defense sort of boiled down to her blame shifting towards prior administrations, insisting that the DOJ has acted appropriately and all of this criticism is politically motivated. She also strongly emphasized her alignment in the defense of President Trump. And going back to Michael's comment, this is where she goes, look at what President Trump has done with the Dow Jones hitting 50,000. Honestly, like none of that really matters in this situation. So did this hearing do anything? No. Didn't resolve, I think, one thing.
I do think it hurt the administration a little bit, mainly because some of the clips of Bondi are so insane. Like she just looks so unhinged, and like specifically that moment with the Epstein survivors, to not be able to like admit, you know, we had some of your identity, you know, markers in there. We're sorry, we fixed it. I just think it is sloppy.
So it kind of reminded me of Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, his hearing.
Yes.
Did it not?
Two little whiny bitches.
A little bit. I mean, I think to me the big takeaway here is it's a piece in a larger mosaic of what is happening right now, which is the tide is turning for Republicans. And I think it's turning politically. I think that when we look at the historic low approval rating of Trump, he is underwater on the economy, which is his fastball. He's underwater on immigration. All this ICE stuff is wildly unpopular. And I think, you know, we talked last week, or was it last week, about John Ossoff, who again kind of made news this week with a really, really just incredibly powerful and catapulting speech, politically speaking, where he really kind of focused on what I think the Democrats are finding messaging success with, which are the 3 C's: costs, chaos, and corruption. And I think that when you look at this Bondi testimony here, it plays into 2 of those 3 things: the corruption and the chaos. And I think that most Americans and most voters, whether you voted for Trump or not, are seeing this as just yet another example of how this administration is frankly out of control and unhinged and playing to an audience of one, which is this senile old guy in the Oval Office at the expense of you and me.
I agree with you on an opinion level. I don't know if Trump voters feel that way, though. I don't know if like a lot of people on the right feel that way, because I do think that there's a sense of I think that a lot of people can probably agree, unless they're in the 30% of like the real MAGA base, that there was a mishandling of the way that these were released in terms of the redaction. Let me finish. I see you're about to interrupt me. In terms of the in terms of the redaction of, you know, co-conspirators and potential criminals emails and the leaving in of identifiers of some of these victims. But I kind of agree with Anthony where he's like, you know, is this really going to do anything? I don't know that Pam Bondi's hearing in itself is going to do anything, because I sort of feel like watching her kind of jump through hoops to try to defend herself, that stuff I just don't think people are going to respond to. I think that more what they're responding to is the moment that I pointed out before, which is the complete dereliction of duty and responsibility to who this case really is about, which is the victims. And that is the part that I think Democrats really should also be seizing on. And I think someone like Melanie Stansbury is a really good example of that, who held a press conference about what went down, because that, like, I think that the more that we can contextualize the horrible things that all of these men did in these emails in terms of who these young women were, that to me is like what makes people realize, to your point, the corruption isn't just like on Donald Trump. It's amongst this whole, I think John Ossoff called it the Epstein class of people. And
Right,
that I
but
feel like is where the messaging lies.
I think I disagree with something there, which is this Epstein stuff. Every single turn, Republicans think that they can get out in front of this, and every single time they think that they're out in front of it, a tidal wave of backlash follows them. And you know, Mike Johnson thought he could outrun this by sending Congress into recess, extended over the summer. The list goes on, and this is totally upending MAGA right now.
Mhm.
All of the MAGAverse, whether they're podcasters,
Right.
whether they're devoted base, this was a core issue. So not only do I think that this is a meaningful issue for the moderates who, yeah, okay, let's vote for Trump this time. But now I'm seeing, oh, he's going too far on immigration. Oh, he's being really shady with this Epstein stuff. Oh, the list goes on. I think it's also really hurting him in the MAGA base. And I think that what is surprising to me is that we haven't seen somebody like a Pam Bondi or somebody like a Kristi Noem or somebody like a Kash Patel be fired yet. That it's confounding to me that he's letting these people stay. And my only assumption as to why is that they're showing how loyal they are, and he's realizing I prefer that loyalty right now over the looking bad and feeling like, okay, we're going to turn the page, blame it on this person, but now we've got a new person who's going to make it better.
Well, did you guys also see Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, came out and said that she has lost all faith in the DOJ and she
Wow.
doesn't trust it? I mean, that's pretty big
Wow.
statement coming from a Republican.
Well,
Yeah,
this
her
is
no
what's
less.
See, this is
her,
what's
yeah.
interesting is all of a sudden you're seeing these people speak out, and the filing deadline for re-election is coming up in March. So I think we're going to see all of a sudden now a lot of people find some real courage to speak out. But I think of like what you just said with Nancy Mace, and I also think of Tom Tillis in North Carolina, who has been going after Stephen Miller and
is not
Kristi
running for
Noem,
re-election.
is not running for re-election. And then every time he's like asked, well, should the president fire him? He says, quote, I'll leave that to the president. So all of these people are attacking all of the cabinet level positions and all the underlings and
But never
stopping
Trump.
short of
Yeah.
attacking Trump. And I think that's a very interesting thing to note on a lot of these people. And Nancy Mace is a great example, right? She's saying, oh, I have no confidence in DOJ. Well, who can make a
directs
change
DOJ?
there? That
Yeah.
would be Donald Trump. Donald Trump can fire Pam Bondi at a moment's notice. But she, of course, won't say that. So I think that going back to your initial question, what does this mean? What does this do? I do think that this is yet another piece of evidence that supports the case that John Ossoff was making, which is, hey, we thought we were draining the swamp, and now we're replacing it with these Epstein protectors. And that's fucking bad. That's not what I voted for. That is not, to say nothing of the morals or the legality or any of that, what's right or wrong here. The fact of the matter is that there is just lying times 10 going on here, and we're not being told the truth.
Well, I also think the thing that's so frustrating about the way that Trump conducts governing is there's a lot of things. But the thing that I think is particularly frustrating in this instance is that there's never any sense of reasonable responsibility. So, like, for example, when Thomas Massie was asking Pam Bondi, is there someone that you can point to within the DOJ that was responsible for redacting these certain names or leaving certain victim identifiers in there, right? Like is there a way to
Which, by the way, is a very fair question to be asking at a judicial committee hearing. Those are the answers we would like to get.
Is there a way to trace to who that person was? And instead of just saying, yes, we're investigating that. Yes, we understand that there was information left that shouldn't have been, or there was instead of just essentially pleading the fifth and being like, yes, we're figuring it out, she had to double down and basically blame Massie for gaslighting her, saying that they didn't correct it. And then this was my favorite exchange, actually, when they're going back and forth. First of all, is it Comer who's head of the Judiciary Committee, or is that
Jim Jordan?
Jordan. So Thomas Massie, who's a Republican, is basically wanting to reclaim his time, which is his right, because Pam Bondi is I always say Bondi Beach. Bondi is
Blondie. Think Blondie.
Because Pam Bondi is evading the question. When he tries to reclaim his time, Jim Jordan, who is also a Republican, obviously, but is a very Trump loyal Republican, is not letting Thomas Massie reclaim his time, which in the congressional rules is what he has the right to do. So first of all, you have the kind of anti-Trump Republican now fighting with his fellow Republican to try to conduct his own questioning. Then when Massie gets into it further with Bondi, he's basically asking this question about the redactions and lack thereof. And Bondi's like, it took us 40 minutes to fix it. And he's like, yeah, because we pointed it out. If no one had pointed it out, you would have never fixed it. And she's like, this is ridiculous. We fixed it immediately. And he just goes, because we caught you red-handed.
Yeah.
It's this kind of thing where I do feel journalists are playing a really important role now. I think a lot of these politicians, specifically Massie and Ro Khanna, are playing a big role right now to point out the mistakes and potential corruption that is in the redacting and non-redacting of these files.
Honestly,
and and I think the way that Bondi responded was so Trumpian. It was so not just letting the thing blow over, but getting hyper defensive about it to a point where she spun out of control.
Yeah, her wiring had a short
totally
during that. Also, is Thomas Massie the new Kirsten Sinema, who's just
kooky,
ruining things for their party?
Kooky. My issue though is I feel like these Pam Bondis going back to the White House and they're all high-fiving.
Totally.
You crushed
that's to Michael's point. I think it's
good.
all a loyalty pool.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's also the sad thing is you always thought the DOJ had some level of separation, even though you are appointed to that position. But I've never seen that intense fight for the press.
Well, to hear the head of just to take a step back and kind of remove ourselves from the expected craziness of the Trump administration, to hear Pam Bondi, who is the head of the Justice Department, in this judiciary hearing saying, you're not talking about all the amazing things that Trump has done for America. You have Trump derangement syndrome. You're ignoring the fact that the stock market is soaring, whatever. To have those, and by the way, those were all talking points that she had pre-listed on whatever sheet was in front of her. So this was these were planned things she wanted to say. That's a campaign event. That's not a government official that whether, we can say over the past couple decades, the DOJ has become less and less independent, but obviously under this administration of Trump feels particularly so. But like, this isn't a campaign event. This isn't about the stock market. It's about the Epstein files. And also, you're not supposed to be touting the president's accomplishments. You're the attorney general of the United States. Like, it has nothing to do with you on a political or governmental level. And I think that is what feels like new in terms of kind of the separation of these, is that people are now on this like loyalty test going into these kinds of situations with the talking points of, okay, how am I going to make sure that I defend Trump in this instance?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I think I just keep going
out of
back
breath.
to the fact. No, that was really good. Good work. Do you want some water? Yeah. Can we get Anna? Do we have a
Someone-
PA to get
someone
Anna
please
some water?
fan Anna. Someone fan
Yes.
Anna, please. Yeah.
Her Majesty is a little sweaty.
Yeah.
Well, I think this continues to speak to the reckoning that we're going to see coming for the midterms. And we obviously are looking at a midterm that is going to be run on a few issues, immigration being one of them. Trump is going to factor heavily into these midterms. And I think another issue that is going to be front and center are tariffs and the economy.
Cha-ching.
So here's a quote for you. I'm not in favor of changing the definition of a day in order to diminish the power of members of the House. This was in response to Sneaky Mike Johnson, that's my new nickname for him, Sneaky Mike. Sneaky Mike this week tried to slip in some procedural nonsense into a bill completely unrelated that would have given Congress, basically would have extended the definition of a legislative day and extended it until July 31st of this year,
What does that mean?
thereby preventing them from actually bringing a vote on the matter of whether or not Trump has congressional authorization to impose these tariffs.
I'm sorry,
So-
can you explain? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So literally, there's an archaic procedural thing where you can extend the definition of a legislative day. So meaning, and this is what Johnson has done over the last year, he has extended the definition of a legislative day to prevent them bringing a vote on this matter, things that they don't want to vote on, because they've pushed it to the following legislative day, but they've extended this.
So you can say a legislative day is like 3 months if you want.
Exactly. And then
Huh.
we're not going to get to it on this legislative day. It's like this crazy nonsense.
God, it's so
And
stupid.
I don't, we
It's
need
all
Ben
this reading
Sheehan.
between the lines,
Yeah,
it's
we need
crazy.
Ben
It's
Sheehan
like
to
Yeah, which
really,
founding father was responsible for
the
that? I
fine
would like a
print,
word.
right.
But so basically, what is happening? Well, our man in California's 3rd congressional district, Kevin Kiley, who is a Republican, a member of our playlist, and pretty conservative Republican. He's big in the agriculture territory, and he is getting redistricted effectively by California's new map drawing. And basically, what Kevin joined, of all people, Thomas Massey, and I believe it was James Comer. 3 Republicans sided with Democrats to basically prevent Johnson from extending the legislative day. So why is that important? Well, now Democrats can bring to the floor a vote on whether or not they want to reclaim congressional authority to oversee tariffs. So these 3 Republicans who have sided with Democrats here are in agreement that they want to curb these tariffs. Why? Because these Republicans happen to represent very agriculture-heavy districts, and they see how unpopular and how crushing these tariffs have been on their farmers and American agriculture workers. So this is something I think to watch here. Kevin Kiley, effectively might very well lose re-election because of these redistricting maps. I think he's kind of, in a place of renewed courage, like hopefully others that we'll see. Make no mistake, he is a true conservative. He is definitely a proponent of a lot of Trump policies, but he's been anti-tariff.
Yeah. I don't know if it's courage as much as it is trying to save his own ass, because he knows that his district is going to become more moderate. And specifically that his district, that he needs to make sure that those farmers who voted for him in the last couple elections are going to vote for him again.
Yeah, that's I'm honestly surprised Kevin Kiley would, because he's a pretty staunch Republican.
Yeah, but so do you guys know where his district is? It's basically the Sacramento suburbs, but then it goes all the way down the border of Nevada. So it's like this kind of super, super long district. It's huge. It's very rural, except for the Sacramento area. And I just feel, you look at someone we covered for a long time, David Valadao, who represents Central California. His own positioning has always been a little bit more moderate, but I think a lot of it does come from farming policy, because he represents such a big agriculture part of California. And I think that Kevin Kiley, even though he's been a big megaphone for Trump, he's been very anti-Newsom. He tried, he was one of the leaders of the recall effort against Newsom, that I think he is doing what, frankly, all politicians should do, which is look at the people in their district and say, is this policy affecting the people who I represent positively or negatively? And the truth is that it's not affecting these farmers positively at all. And
we're seeing polling in Iowa right now. Trump is underwater in Iowa and has effectively put Democrats in contention in Iowa. Our playlister, Ashley Hinson, who is running to replace Joni Ernst for Senate. I'm blanking on the Democratic challenger there, but all of a sudden that person now has a chance, because Iowa farmers, soybean farmers, are just getting decimated right now. And, Kevin Kiley is recognizing this. And I think that a lot of these Republicans who are in these more agriculture heavy areas really need to start speaking up on the tariff thing, because I think it's absolutely going to be a major economic element of the messaging and the debate as we head into the midterms. And, I'm not sure what Kevin Kiley's chances are with whatever the redrawn map is, but he's a very young, very charismatic Republican in a heavy blue state. And I think that he's been a very interesting voice in Congress. It'll be interesting to see if he can hold on to his seat here.
I also think that the whole issue of tariffs, to me, is almost like the easiest one that Republicans can go against Trump on, because I think that it doesn't feel cultural. It doesn't feel inherent to like a MAGA standpoint. And I feel like people can make their own local arguments, like Kevin Kiley could, for why they think tariffs are being mishandled. And so it is actually kind of interesting, and we'll see how it unfolds over the next few months, that more Republicans are not saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, like this whole, I don't know if you guys are following this whole thing in Michigan with the bridge, and how Trump is trying to basically stop construction of this bridge, which Canada has fully paid for. It's a bridge going between Canada and Michigan. It's going to be co-owned by the state of Michigan and the nation of Canada. It's going to be very good because it's another trade access point. And Trump is basically saying, like, we're getting screwed because there's going to be like a way for Canada to have better free trade with America. And it's just like a weird, I don't know. It's all weird to me. It's like, these are the fights that you're picking, really?
Well, it's actually interesting on that. This is kind of a side convo, but there's a family who owns the other bridge. They're actually big Democratic fundraisers.
Interesting.
And they're Lebanese. They're actually from the same village my grandfather grew up in.
No way.
Wow.
and he's no longer alive, but I met the guy who built it, and
Wow.
they're
That's so
suing
random.
Canada. Yeah, and supposedly they had a meeting with Trump right before that all came out, like an hour before. So
Really?
But they own the existing bridge.
yes, yeah.
But then what's crazy is I'm like, okay, so what does Trump want? He just doesn't want another bridge. He doesn't want another
And
access point
it's
for
already
Canada.
built.
It's already built. That's like,
Like,
it's literally
it's-
millions. And
Yeah.
when you listen to Gretchen Whitmer talk, this is such a tangent, but when you listen to Gretchen Whitmer talk about it, it created so many jobs for people in Michigan. It basically, Trump was saying like it wasn't made with American goods or it was made with Canadian steel. And it's like, yeah, because by the way, we also get a lot of steel from Canada.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sorry, this isn't the Industrial Revolution anymore. Like, we don't get most of our steel from America nowadays. And
Also,
so I
we
just
need
think it's
more bridges and
yeah,
like
we need to build bridges,
new-
guys.
Yeah.
Well,
With each other.
yes.
Well,
I
it
can
goes
tell
back to
you-
the tariff and economy point of view that Canada is such a vital trading partner with us that
Yeah.
we're actually all of these tariffs, particularly ones on Canada, are just we're shooting ourselves in
It
the
looks
foot.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you who's not building bridges.
Oh,
Let's
Who?
talk about some of the Republicans who are pushing for the Save America Act. So, on this episode's How to Talk About, we're going to talk about the Save America Act. The Save America Act would require a proof of citizenship to register to vote and a photo ID at the ballot box.
Mm.
So, this legislation just passed the House today, which is Wednesday. However, it is likely to die in the Senate, where it would need 60 votes to overcome the filibuster. And Leader John Thune has said that he will not nuke the filibuster solely for this legislation to be passed. So, a proof of citizenship is essentially a birth certificate or a passport. And the reality is that many people don't have access to their birth certificates and or they don't have the financial means to acquire a passport. I don't know if you guys know where your birth certificate is, but I don't. I would have to like call my parents.
For sure.
I got it. I got it here in my
You
drawer.
do? Wow. That's
Yep.
just in a
Do
drawer.
you actually? Do you
Just
actually?
in a drawer. Yep. I can't show it to you right now, but it's
Okay.
here.
Perfect.
Yeah,
It's
he
here.
also reads the newspaper. So
It's
yeah.
here. Yep.
This would also disenfranchise many low-income voters. And all the information I'm going to read you guys is from something called the Bipartisan Policy Center. So this is an organization that has no interest in supporting either side. But
Prove it.
they have reported that 9% of all eligible voters do not have access to documents that prove their citizenship. 52% of registered voters do not have an unexpired passport with their current legal name. That's 52% of registered voters. 11% of registered voters do not have access to their birth certificate. And birth certificates are an especially tough proof of citizenship because they can, for someone who has changed their name through marriage, for example, they can be very inadequate. Or for a small population in the United States of transgender people, they can also be inadequate. Not surprising that Republicans are trying to stop them from voting. But this also affects elderly people, people in rural areas, and disabled people who register to vote by mail because the SAVE Act requires documentary proof of citizenship to be delivered in person to an election office, which essentially cancels out all the benefits of mail-in registration. The last thing I want to say about the SAVE Act before we discuss this is that the instances of non-citizens voting are extremely rare. And any attempts of it happening are investigated and prosecuted. And there has never been evidence that voting by non-citizens has made an impact to influence an election's outcome. And in one specific instance, Utah in 2025 performed a citizenship review of its entire voter registration list. And after a review of more than 2 million registered voters, they identified one instance of non-citizen voter registration and 0 instances of non-citizen voting. And many states also use federal agency systems to scan for issues of non-citizens who might be receiving entitlement program benefits. And records show that in those scans, just 0.04% of voter verification searches are returned as non-citizens. So
Yeah.
That's from the Bipartisan Policy Center on what the SAVE Act would do.
Yeah, I mean, this is effectively a solution to a problem that does not exist.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like this continues to be something that people, in this case, Republicans, are using to suppress voters. And they're using the misrepresentation of data and of fear mongering to suggest, oh, well, this is a way that illegal immigrants vote and they vote for Democrats.
Yeah.
So we're going to make sure that you have to show an ID or a passport or a birth certificate so that only American citizens are voting.
Yeah. The thing that is that I just want to like clarify about this is that this idea of presenting photo ID, which could be your driver's license, at the ballot box is not something that I think people would necessarily be against on its own, because I think that that kind of verification is much more accessible. People have ID cards. It's much more easy to get a driver's license than to get it, and it's free than to get a passport. What is really the sticking point, and I think the so clear suppression of certain people's ability to vote, is this proof of citizenship when registering to vote. And I think that we have a huge underregistered voter population in the United States of America. We have a huge turnout issue in elections in the United States of America. And this is just a tactic to make those numbers go down. It's to discourage people. And Lisa Murkowski, who's a senator from Alaska with a lot of rural constituents,
Yep.
she's a Republican, but she has come out and said that she would not vote for this when it comes to the Senate. So it's very clear when you look at the people who are suspicious of this, even on the right, why this is just such an unrealistic expectation. And to your point, Michael, I think is just a perfect example of fear mongering. Representative Brendan Gill, who is from Texas, is like, he's a very far right Republican. His use of fear mongering around, quote, illegals voting is so ridiculous to me that it's almost like comical. And I feel like any person, I don't know, Democrats need to make it very clear that illegal immigrants are not voting in elections in the United States, at least not intentionally in large numbers, because that kind of fear is what got us into the mess that we're currently in places like Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I'm very much for having a photo ID to vote. I don't see like an issue in that, but I think they have to have more accessible, more options for people. Now, that might be like showing a credit card that has the same name, right? It's if you travel a bunch, it's connecting your TSA account with it, right? Like there's got to be more options to the consumer to validate this. And I always hate when I would apply for something and they'd be like, oh, we need to verify your address,
like your gas bill or whatever,
your gas bill and your utility. And I'm like, well, I'm renting and I don't, that's not in my name. So how do I right? And
totally. The other thing that I wanted to add to what you just made me think of, Anthony, is that what this bipartisan policy center was also saying is that the burden to fix whatever perceived problem people feel about voter fraud or misregistration of certain people, it shouldn't be on the people. It should be on the government. So if the government really feels like this is such a problem, then the government should create a system, for example, where when you register to vote, it's not just, okay, you're in the system. They send you a card in the mail and you have to bring that card with you to mail, to go vote. And that's, to your point, Anthony, like maybe you don't have a driver's license because you live in a place where you don't need to drive, but you have this card because you registered to vote. Or they need to create some sort of system where you're, able to be electronically linked to your birth certificate when you go to try to register to vote. So it's like, what I thought was really interesting about this breakdown of it was that I hadn't really thought of, which is why are we constantly putting so much burden on Americans who already have enough shit to worry about in their lives, when instead of having the government think proactively and perhaps working together to say, okay, can we come up with a system that actually works for people and addresses people's concerns?
So the data, the polling on this issue is about 80% of Americans are in favor of voter ID laws. And so they, when you then start to ask follow-up questions and start to dial it in, people seem overwhelmingly okay with, okay, you have to show a photo ID, so they're matching a name and a face, right?
Mhm.
But then when you start to get into passports and birth certificates, this is where the polling and popularity of this goes way down. And I think it's important to note here the great irony of all this is a heavily supported Republican thing. And they are, of course, doing it under the false pretext of there's so many illegals voting and they're voting Democrat. And it's because of the illegals that, Democrats are winning. And the fact of the matter is that as Lisa Murkowski well knows, this kind of a law overwhelmingly hurts rural Republican areas,
Mm.
just the same as Trump's whole bit in 2020 about don't use mail-in voting ultimately disproportionately hurt people who were voting for him.
Yeah.
Older white people in rural areas who couldn't get to the polls or were told not to go out because of COVID. And so actually
And then in
voting
2024, he was like, actually do use mail-in voting.
mail-in voting, right? And so like we're heading in, and I don't think that we can undersell this enough. The shitstorm and the chaos that we're heading into at these midterm elections, both in terms of what we're going to see in the days and weeks leading up to it, the federalized military police presence we're going to see surrounding polling places as a voter intimidation tactic, et cetera, and then the aftermath that we're going to see following these results. And I think that, this isn't a doom and gloom fear monger podcast, but I really think our listeners need to start wrapping their head around this idea that there is going to be ICE in a federal presence at our voting stations come November 3rd, 2026. There are going to be court challenges that are going to contest what ought to be free and fair elections. And we are going to see such a buckshot of misinformation coming at us here. And I just implore people to, when they look at data, when they look at an article, when they look at your reporting, please check the sources, check what kind of credible news outlet is saying things, because I don't think that we are prepared for what's coming this November.
I've shared a lot of fake stuff lately with friends.
Yeah.
and
How's
a
it
lot
going?
of friends have shared fake stuff with me, and I'm like, and I've really gotten into looking at stuff because I hate when I send something or they do, and you go, please stop sending this around because it's fake.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
because that's how the rumor mill starts.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap this up before we move on, I just wanted
wrap
to
it
bring
up.
up. Sorry, I just wanted to bring up
Wrap
like
it.
the next steps of this, which I think are notable. As I said, this is likely to die in the Senate in its current path because it would
Like
need to
many
get
of our older senators. Sorry,
because
go
it would
on.
need to get
That was
60
good.
votes. So it's likely to die in the Senate because it would need to get 60 votes. But Our Lady Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, she in the House, she is like one of the biggest advocates of the Save America Act and has been incredibly vocal about it on all forms of media. And I actually didn't know this, but she now has this plan where she is convinced that she can convince Speaker Johnson to attach the Save America Act to the FISA reauthorization,
Ugh.
which is the reauthorization of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is essentially the legislation that we need to make sure we can keep like spying on our enemies and keep ourselves safe from a foreign intelligence perspective. And so she's essentially saying, okay, because it's sort of a similar thing with like the National Defense Authorization Act that people are always attaching things to it because no one wants to be seen as voting like against our military. Same thing here. So she's saying, let's attach the SAVE Act to the FISA reauthorization because then it's going to put a bunch of pressure on moderate Democrats, potentially some moderate leaning Republicans to vote for the SAVE Act because they don't want to be seen as voting against the FISA reauthorization. So
and she's trying to get the SAVE Act passed.
she's
Which-
save all the way.
I would love to ask Anna Paulina Luna one question.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Bad Bunny? That's if I had 5 minutes at a congressional hearing with Anna Paulina Luna, I would use my time to ask her, do you like Bad Bunny?
I would first ask if she's a fan of his body before him, to start on common ground.
Common ground,
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think we can agree.
Well, I'll believe I'll believe that Anna Paulina Luna has the inside line to Johnson after she gets the parenting act passed that she was so confident she could do, and then
with
caved
Brittany
on
Patterson,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to some positive news with our win of the week.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, da, da,
Guess who's
da,
in
da.
second place on medal count?
The USA. Guess who's in
Pew,
first?
pew, pew, pew. Italia and Switzerland.
No, that's so
Oh,
wrong.
that's not wrong.
Maybe
We're
in
talking
gold
about
medals?
overall. We're talking about overall medals.
Overall medals, Norway has the most.
I thought it was Switzerland.
You are wrong.
I think it's maybe not Norway. I think it's Switzerland.
Literally, Michael.
It's
cannot,
Norway. It's Norway.
Norway.
So
Michael
it's Norway.
cannot be like. You are the most man's stubborn ever. Like I prepared.
First of all, I said
prepared for this
Italy.
section.
I said Italy. Well, the Olympics are happening in real time here.
Well,
so,
they're not happening right now. It's the middle of the night, so
well,
the numbers are
you
steady
know,
for right
who's to
now.
I would just
say?
stop talking, Michael. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to Jim Jordan this. And I'm
Okay.
going to say that
I reclaim my time.
You know, I reclaim my time.
reclaim
I
my
reclaim
time.
my time, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, I reclaim my time. I will say that what I'm super excited for is the U.S. women's hockey face-off against Canada, which is most likely going to be the final match. They had the way the matches work. They had their first match that's like a preliminary match for positioning.
oh yeah.
And the U.S. like crushed them, and Canada.
Let me put this.
was
Let me
without-
put
there
this
was-
in Canada. Let me put this in Canada terms for you. You got pumped 5 goose. That's what we say in Canada.
5 goose.
And
That's
I
what you
said,
say
I don't
in
know.
Canada?
I've been once, but that is
Canada,
pumped 5 goose.
They were
That's what
without
I'm
their
trying to
best
do on
player.
Saturday.
They were without their best player, who is understood to be like the best women's hockey player in the world. So definitely the final match is going to be tougher than what they just did. But I'm pulling for Team USA. What are your guys' favorite events so far?
I just want to shout out the coach, and I forget his name, but will somebody
he's really young
smart
too.
listening? No. I was gonna say the coach of the athletes who spoke out against Trump and ICE and took a lot, like literally the president like was denigrating them and like name calling and shit. I was watching a press conference where this coach like spoke so eloquently about how, without saying how absurd that is for a U.S. president to be doing, was basically just promoting what is ultimately like the American values and the Olympic values of like, hey, we're representing our country proudly on the world stage. Like, in no way should the president of the United States be denigrating American athletes.
Yeah.
Like, and I just thought it was like the way he said it, the way he handled it all was honestly like, I mean, it's just so glaring how incompetent of a leader we have right now.
I was more for the Bravo TV moments where the guy who won the bronze medal said
Oh my
he
God!
cheated on his
Admitted
girlfriend.
he cheated on his girlfriend.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love it.
Wow.
I love
And then
it.
she came out and said, just because you apologize to the world doesn't, like,
Yeah, I'm with her.
want to take you back. Oh,
that's
for
not
sure,
how
I'm with
you-
her.
Yeah. Ugh.
Grand
Not
gestures
great.
only go so far. No, I agree with
also,
you, Michael.
Quad God? Can we talk about Quad God?
God. Although you know what I have to
Like-
say that has been coming up a lot on my women's sports Instagram algorithm
Ugh.
is Quad God is amazing, but there is the forgotten story of the Olympian who was a woman who did a backflip in ice skating when it was illegal. Because to basically prove a point, because they wouldn't let her do it, saying that it was too dangerous. And so now Ilya Malinen's getting all this credit for doing the backflip, but I think it's important to reference.
And when you say she was a woman, is she no longer, or
She's around. Wait, I have to look up her
okay.
name again.
No,
She's still a woman. She's still a
I
woman.
meant no
Yes.
longer a woman, or is she?
Oh no,
has she transitioned to
woman.
men's figure
And
skating?
I didn't
What?
really get that.
Yeah, not quick on the
I didn't
uptake
get
there.
that. I thought you meant is she
Yeah.
dead? Her name is
No.
Surya Balani, and she
Mm.
did the backflip at the 1998 Nagano Winter Olympics.
Oh,
She executed
we're
the
going
move
back
on.
to Nagano. Wow.
Yeah, but I'm saying like she did this a long time ago. And so I
Got it.
just think that credit should be given where credit is due, that he is not the first figure skater to be able to do this trick.
Well, forever Nagano will be remembered as the year Johnny Mosley did the Iron Cross 360 to win gold in the men's moguls. Johnny Mosley, word up.
All right.
If you're listening,
well,
come on the show.
happy Olympics, everybody.
Cheers.
All right. Go
Cheers.
USA.
Wait, before we